The absolute worst thing about non-dual philosophy is that it implicates you in everything evil humanity has ever done. When you have this sense of realization that the universe is one thing and you are it, then it can give you a sense of relief because you start to notice that everything is one and intimately interconnected, and therefore you don't need to be afraid of death so much, and you can feel whole as a person because there's nothing to reach towards. But you then also notice that, wait, you are literally every evil thing that has ever been done to anybody. Like, you have done it. And this might sound a bit magical if you've never suffered this idea or this understanding, but a ton of clients of mine and people that I've just helped overall in this stuff have a huge problem with the aspect of morality, with the realization that, wait, non-duality is kind of morally nihilistic, or better said, the truth is morally nihilistic. When reality allows itself to be with no limitation, this means that torture, rape, the worst horrors imaginable, all of them exist in like the same space. And more so, if it all is one, and I am one, then I have done all of these horrible things. And yeah, I've talked to multiple people at this point that this realization made them go crazy because they cannot accept that a benevolent reality would allow for such things. And a lot of people have the ability to build themselves into frameworks of eternal suffering, where instead of letting go of their egoic identity, they cling to it even stronger and they say that God is evil or reality is evil. But usually when you get kind of in this deep sense of resentment towards reality in life, it's common to externalize it to God. On the other hand, there's of course also the path of nihilism, which has its own problems. But this idea that, oh no, it's like a god and he's actually evil for allowing rape and torture and all of this to exist, and I'm basically the victim of God who has brought me into existence, is usually the way people try to cope with the fact that, according to this non-dual framework, they are God. So this sense of derealization comes as a sort of protective mechanism. So you have two types of people. Usually people who start to get such a strong sense of ego inflation that they think they are literally God, like as a personal individual. And from there, they start to get, extremely mad at themselves because they think they have created like hell by creating the universe or the earth. Or you disassociate and you say, no, I am not God. God is something that has been done to me as an individual, and God is evil and he has cast hell upon all living beings. And this is darker than you can possibly put into words, because as dark as it may sound, psychologically, it feels absolutely true. Like, it doesn't sound, it might sound like philosophy to you if you're not suffering this, but if you are suffering this, I want you to know that you can get out of this perception. Like, you don't need to be stuck there, but you need to realize that this perception of reality is not the ultimate truth. It's a sort of coping mechanism that the mind creates in order to protect itself from the limitless potential of reality. And all of the fear and discomfort that comes with realizing this is meaningful. It exists because it is pointing to something real. And that's why nihilism never really works, because nihilism would imply that nothing of it really matters or there's no real experience behind it. But the moment reality hits you in the face, the moment you are in the mouth of the crocodile's jaw, so to say, then there's no going back. You'll have to experience what there is to experience. And there's a way you can cope with that by analyzing your own mental architecture and understanding Where have you started to use truth in order to deny something else? Something about your personal life, some existential truth. Because truth at the end of the day is, you might say it's neutral, but it actually has a positive valent quality to it. When you truly come in contact with what is true, there is also acceptance with it. If I tell you a true fact about something, like today you will have spaghetti for dinner, and you might not be a big fan of spaghetti, you might think it's whatever, but then yeah, it's just a fact. But if you for whatever reason hate spaghetti, which would be very weird of you, then this true statement doesn't just ring as a true statement, but there's a visual like, I don't want to eat that. And this is a very lighthearted example for a very, very dark topic. But the nature of disliking existence and hating existence always comes from resisting what is true. And resisting what is true is an internal mechanism that is basically, you could say a failed skill check for your psyche. But this failed skill check is kind of inevitable at some point, because humans have developed such high intelligence that they can even fathom about the nature of reality or non-duality and all of this stuff. So the problem is that when you understand non-duality truly, there are some very dark truths you must confront yourself with. And a lot of it relates to some sort of moral nihilism. And it's not moral nihilism because there is no good and bad in some objective sense. Like, for all intents and purposes, if you hurt somebody else and you cause this person suffering, like from one individual to another individual, the reason this is bad is because if we are indeed all one consciousness or one being or one reality, well, then you're just hurting yourself. That it is just a system that is deluding itself out of a feeling of false separation, and then it causes harm onto another and therefore onto itself. And then this is also where this feeling of empathy comes from, where we intuit that it doesn't actually matter that much who gets hurt, but the fact that something is getting hurt is enough. Empathy is almost a sort of dimension jump where you can put yourself into the mind of another without actually having to be there. But what often happens through non-dual realization or awakening is that this boundary starts to dissolve, and all of a sudden, it really doesn't matter if I'm in this body or in another body, or if I see suffering in the world. All of the suffering is actually real. It's not just about me. And this is not a pleasant realization. And a lot of my work is about helping people in this existential conundrum. And if this is something that you want help with, then check out in the description my Ego Architecture Audit. It is there to deconstruct all of these different frameworks people usually get entangled with that causes them more suffering. But it requires a certain type of person to be willing to look at themselves and wonder, okay, what is it that I'm resisting so much, that I'm seeking the nature of reality, or that I'm wishing to be another person, or that I want to find meaning or a deep connection in life, that whatever I have right now is not enough. So this is really the purpose. So the more I talk about philosophy and the nature of reality, and the more I talk about existential matters, I get a lot of people starting to talk about philosophy and discussing philosophy. And this is, of course, all very interesting and was my passion my entire life. But at the end of the day, you can watch as many YouTube videos as you like about philosophy. If you don't do the actual existential work of introspection and self-reflection, then you won't get anywhere. If the goal is to get anywhere, that is. Which for me, the only goal is to reduce the suffering of all living beings. Which as little as I can do, I want to do as much as I can. Now, this idea of morality is such a personal idea, because what we feel like is immoral is something that is very hard to debate with. Like, if you instinctively sense that abortion is immoral, you don't want to really question that. Like, questioning that is extremely uncomfortable. And you don't even know, where should I find like a real answer to this, right? Because there is not really a real answer. It is more an instinct that is born out of you that says this is wrong. And the same instinct can happen with just reality or society or existence or just the animal kingdom. When you see a lion eating a zebra and you think this is wrong, in the sense of revulsion is so automatic that once you cling to this automatic revulsion for existence as like some objective truth, then you are going to suffer a lot in life, because you're resisting a fact. You're resisting the nature of how things are. And the more you resist, the more it will keep hurting. And it is incredible in what type of spirals people can find themselves in. Like, I talk to people that have built the perfect frameworks to put themselves in an infinite amount of misery, just by the mind finding loops where it can just dig itself into a deeper and deeper hole of dissatisfaction. And yeah, what this often looks like is resentment for God, like I said before, or some sort of nihilistic desire for all existence to cease forever. And I think this is also where a lot of school shootings happen, or just a lot of people who just want to harm others for no clear reason. But it's almost like sort of revenge fantasy, that if existence put them in such an awful place, then they should able to exert the same power and unleash suffering onto other beings. It is, in fact, the case that there's a lot of evil in the world, right? And I don't think that the lion eating the zebra is the best example, as lions aren't as aware or as conscious as humans are. But humans have the pretty deliberate ability to defend those in power who abuse others. I am, of course, referencing the Epstein files now. Like, it is insane how much power tries to protect itself, even when it's so blatantly obvious how evil it is what is being protected. And now, if you are into modern spirituality or into non-duality, and you are supposed to accept that God or existence or the universe allows for such things to happen, and then it is still okay, or that reality is still ultimately made out of love, is what spirituality often says. This crosses some wires in the mind that, of course, doesn't make sense from the human perspective. Of course, freedom as some ultimate good, if this is what we're going with for now, if freedom as some ultimate good implies such horrible things to happen, also the freedom to do such horrible things, then one might argue that freedom is bad, or freedom is what is evil about existence. But notice, when I frame it this way, it sounds a bit odd, right? Because we kind of intuitively see freedom as what we're all yearning for, like freedom from ourselves, freedom from our own egoic desires, freedom from financial dependencies, freedom from attachments. But real freedom also means the freedom to be evil and do evil. And this is something that, a lot of people don't really want to engage with, which oftentimes, if you have like a lot of thoughts about how evil existence is and all of this stuff, it usually is a rejection of your own internal evil, so to say. Like things you've done in the past that you regret, things that you feel a desire towards that you regret, and you have not you've not accepted the fact that these things are also part of you. And the more you move towards spirituality or non-duality, and you take this work seriously, sooner you find some deep dark pits of your own psyche that then start to reveal themselves to you. And if you want to push them down, or if you want to like reject them and not look at them, well, then you're going to build elaborate frameworks of like hatred for existence, or hatred for God, or hatred for life, or whatever. So you don't want to do that. Please don't do that. It is much better to seek help and to understand that what you experience is valid. Like what you're sensing is wrong is true. Like it's not about some objective morality or some sort of ultimate truth, but the instinct of revulsion when you see some horrible things happen, like how people are defending Epstein, or even how just how we humans treat each other, and everything's now being used to manipulate us in this modern landscape. Both social media algorithms, and AI is going to come next, and it's just so much sickness, and it's reasonable to look at this and be like revolted by it, because it is sick. Like, it is a product of a sick society that has just looped around its own sickness, or like built on its own sickness time and time again. And the recognition that this is the case and we don't have to keep being like this is some internal sense that says there's something better possible. And I want you to focus on this intuition that there's something better possible. Like, this revulsion towards negativity shows you what this freedom ultimately actually wants us to be. And of course, I'm anthropomorphizing a concept like freedom, as if freedom could want something. But there's a good argument to be made that the nature of existence is such that we move towards valence, or like positive states of existence, and want to move away from suffering and negative states of existence, or like dissonance or negative valence, you could also say. So it's not some ultimate meaning or ultimate purpose entrenched by some god or whatever, but the nature of consciousness might be such, or seems to point to the fact that it is such, that it will, over longer periods of time, move towards bliss, love, compassion, and well-being. And the more conscious a society has become, the more aware they have become of all of the things that is, evil about them or sick about them. And again, evil in this sense just means causing harm to another, or you could say causing unnecessary harm to another. And with the word unnecessary, you create a lot of philosophical debates, right? What is unnecessary harm? But as long as we can agree that evil is unnecessary harm onto another, as like some baseline stat with which we can like agree on, then at least we have like a pointer. And then if abortion is necessary or unnecessary, is then something you would have to debate out. But then we don't have to do some stupid nihilistic moral debates about if torturing babies is truly evil, or if there exists some objective reality about if abusing another is okay or not. Like, it is not. And it's not just intuitively or categorically the fact, but it's just the factual state when you observe how the experience expresses itself as suffering. The suffering is some ground indicator that something doesn't want to be in this way. And the only way you can perpetuate this is by turning a blind eye and not taking seriously what is going on, or to assume that because it's not your suffering, it's not real and it doesn't really matter. And this is why I also think that this work of awakening and expanding a sense of awareness and consciousness is what ultimately will bring us together, because it will make us, will give us the ability to see each other as one, and therefore also give us this moral imperative to be like, okay, we need to eradicate suffering for all existence as much as we can. Even in an infinite universe with infinite possibilities, each bit that you reduce suffering actually matters. And the reason you know this is because imagine your life full of suffering or your life full of well-being. Which one do you prefer? Would you ever say, no, it doesn't matter because I'm just one person out of 8 billion people, so who cares what happens to me? Now, from your own perspective, it's the absolutely most important thing for you to experience life as a pleasant experience. And their well-being is like a moral categorical imperative. And now, extrapolate this to all living beings on this planet. And it becomes first quite stark how big the amount of suffering is, but then also it becomes quite stark how meaningful existence really is and how much is actually at stake. And all of these things, I do think is very important to recognize them as knowable and truthful, and to not just mythologize suffering as just pure illusion or not really real, or synapses on the brain that are firing. All of this is pretty much irrelevant if you look at the facts at hand. If you take conscious experience seriously, or take your own conscious experience seriously, it immediately becomes evident that it is very important to care for another. So if you're suffering from anything that I've talked about in this video, then check out my one-on-one offer, like the Ego Architecture Audit, where I go in depth into your own psychology and try to observe what is going on with you as objectively as possible and find the knots that is causing the resistance and the suffering. And if you want to understand the nature of reality better and why the things work how they work, then check this video out next.